Good day everyone, this is Mohammed Nasim Firdaus and I will be here to narrate this PowerPoint presentation which is based on task-based language teaching. And is it the strongest version of CLT? So we will be looking on this particular topic. Basically we will be following task-based language teaching, that's our primary area. And the information here in these slides are taken from Richards and Rodgers, Larson Freeman, and different sources. And of course, these slides are prepared by me, that is Mohammed Nasim Firdaus. And I would like to welcome in today's narration. But before starting further, I believe you already have the experience of communicative language teaching, that is CLT. And if you do not have those experience, if you haven't yet visited or watched or observed communicative language teaching, that particular slide or narration, then I would like to strongly recommend you to go back and look at that particular slide or narration on CLT and come back again to go through with this presentation, because as we are doing in this particular program, we are gathering information on different methods and approach, and this is one kind of sequential. After one particular method or approach, I am moving to another one, so there is a very good connection among these methods and approach. So that's why you need to have knowledge on communicative language teaching before coming in here, because there are lots of similarities you will find in previous class. I also showed you the differences between methods and approach through audiovisual method and communicative language teaching. So this particular method, that is task-based language teaching or TBLT, will have the influence from CLT. So that's why you need to have this look. Okay, enough of the introduction. Let's get through with this task-based language teaching. Okay, before starting this particular slide and having information on this task-based language teaching, I would like to give you a reminder. The reminder is that we are looking at these methods and approach because we want to develop a material which can be adapted in this particular methods and approach. So if you do not know what this particular methods and approach are all about, if you do not know the cons and pros of these methods and approach, you will not be able to design a material for its students. So that's why we need to have proper knowledge on these methods and approach, as you can design properly the materials. We are focusing on the materials, so that's why we need to look at these things, and we need to look at the background, how this particular language teaching affects the students learning a language. So all these things we need to keep strict and strong in our mind. Okay, so what is TBLT? According to Larson Freeman, and which is also one of your textbooks, according to Larson Freeman, task-based language teaching is another example of the strong version of the communicative approach, and that's what is our topic. We are saying that we will be identifying through this slide whether TBLT is the strong version of communicative approach. So we can say this is the later version, this is the updated version of communicative approach, that could be CLT or other communicative approaches. So because in this particular approach, we will be looking at or learning the language through its use. In other words, students acquire the language they need or when they need it in order to accomplish the task that has been set before them. So they will be learning a language by accomplishing the task which is set by the teachers or the instructors, and by accomplishing this task they will have the knowledge, they will have the involvement with the target language. According to Richards and Rodgers, is the logical development of communicative language teaching So definitely through time, because of the context, we need to be developed, we need to go from one particular stage to another particular stage, and TBLT is the next stage. So the assumptions, we already know that all approaches are based on the assumptions. So what are the assumptions in task-based instruction in here? So here are the key assumptions, focusing on the process rather than the product. So we are not talking about this particular language, rather than we are talking about how to learn a language. So that's what is process. Elements are purposeful activities and tasks that emphasizes communication and meaning. So we'll be learning language, we'll be using language in order to communicate, and there will be meaning in there, and there will be communication in there. We will be focusing or will be activating those particular activities and tasks. If those tasks and activities do not have any purpose, like grammar translation method, where we don't need to communicate, rather we need to learn the structures. So those activities or those tasks will be skipped under task-based instruction. And learning a language, the learners will learn a language by interacting communicatively and purposefully while engaged the activities and tasks. So they will have activities, they will have tasks. So definitely there is a question, what is activities and what is task? Whether is there any differences or any similarities between them or around them? So we'll be talking to that. But here, look at these assumptions only. We'll be going through that. And the activities and tasks, they will be real life related. So any activities, as you know that we learn a language, the objective of a language is to communicate, to share experiences. That's what is believed by task-based language instruction. So that's why whenever there will be a real life task, or whenever we will be doing something which is very much related with the real life, those activities and tasks will be highlighted and accepted under task-based instruction. And those that have a pedagogical purpose specific to the classroom, yes, if there is some teaching-based purposes, those will be based on the specific to the classrooms. And activities and tasks of a task-based syllabuses are sequenced according to difficulty. Okay, so definitely we are moving towards one level to another level. If the learner is in a level 1 or level A, he or she will move to level B, then level C. So the difficulty level will be set by that. So from one part to another part, from one sequence to another sequence, from one step to another step. And that's why the difficulty of a task depends on a range of factors, including the previous experience of the learner, whether they have some background knowledge of this particular things. For example, you cannot talk about the different words and sentences before you teach your students about the letters. So first you need to learn, teach them the letters, then words, then sentences. So that could be another thing. So if you go with the structures, but for a conversation, you need to start with the beginning. What to say during starting a conversation. So from this level to another level, you have to maintain these steps. That's why the complexity of the task, the language required to undertake the task, and the degree of support available. So based on the support, based on the task, and based on the complexity, the levels and the difficulty levels of the task will be set. And all these assumptions are developed by Pease in 1998. So the question, the major question is, what is exercise, what is task, and what is activity? What are the relations or the differences among them? So Professor Richards, that means Jack C. Richards, who is one of the authors of the textbook. And according to Richards, an exercise is a teaching procedure that involves controlled, guided, or open-ended practice of some aspect of language. So whenever we are referring an exercise, we are referring as a controlled and guided and open-ended practice. So the practice you will be having to develop your language skill, that will be controlled. So that means you will have proper instruction, controlled instruction in there. You will be guided, and there will be open-ended practice. So that means you will have lots of opportunities. There should be some literal there will be less boundaries, less limitations in there. And if I want to have the example, yes, the drill that you have found in ordinary method, this particular word and the phrase, a drill, close activity, a reading comprehension passage, can all be regarded as exercises. So anything of this could be an exercise. So through these exercises, you will have a controlled, guided, and open-ended practice. Jack C. Richards also talked about the activity, and he referred singing a song, playing a game, taking part in debate, having a group discussion are all different kinds of teaching activities. So anything which will be purposeful in a classroom, that will be considered as an activity. For example, singing a song cannot be for learning a language, but during this activity, if a learner learns a language or some components of a language, then those particular action will be considered as an activity. So singing a song is an activity, playing a game is an activity, taking part in a debate is an activity. So as a teacher, you can initiate a game, or you can initiate a debate, or you can initiate a singing competition, or singing and functioning there. And among these things, you can have purposeful classroom procedure, which will have definite or particular goals, and the learners will be able to learn the language through practice. And the task. So based on this one, task and activity, there are lots of similarities in there. Some consider that a task can be an activity. A task can be an activity, but if we talk about activity, it doesn't only mean the task. There are other options as well, other things as well. So that's why you need to look this particular terms very closely. Jack C. Richards talked that task is something that learners do or carry out using their existing language resources. So if you have some resources about your language, for example, if I talk about English language, so you have some knowledge about English language, maybe the sentence structures in there, maybe some vocabularies in there, and based on these structures, based on this knowledge, on the resources, if you carry out some of the action, if you carry out some action, those will be considered as tasks, because a task has an outcome which is not simply linked to learning language. Through language acquisition may occur as the learner carries out the task. So it doesn't actually directly or only link of learning language, rather than you will be doing something, and by doing that thing you will be learning the language. So let's go back to the differences between task and activity again. Whenever we are saying an activity, under an activity we will have lots of tasks. All those tasks will be consisting a particular activity. So under an activity you can find a task in there. A task itself can be an activity, but we do not only mean task by activity. It seems very confusing, but let's stick with the one particular thing. Activity is a very big idea, and the whole idea, whether task is a part of an activity. I hope that this simplifies all. So let's have this one is relevant to learners' needs. A task will be to learners' needs. It involves a focus on meaning. So definitely we are focusing on the meaning as part of the task-based language instruction, as it is an updated version of CLT. With the involvement of two or more learners, it calls upon the learners' use of communication strategies and interaction skills. Okay, let me explain about these particular phrases: communication strategies and interactional skills. For example, if you want to buy a shirt and you have moved to a shop, and to buy that shirt, you need to talk. You need to talk maybe to the attendant, maybe with the shopkeeper. So what will you say? You will be asking for the sizes, you will be asking for the colors, you will be asking for the prices, you will be negotiating, you will be bargaining with these things, and doing those things, you will be you'll be needed to go through or maintain a strategy, and those particular strategy is considered as communication strategy. And the way you will be interacting with the shopkeeper, with the attendant, is or will be considered your interactional skill. So like this thing, whenever you will be practicing some language tasks, language activities in there, you will be able to use the communication. You have to use communication strategy and interactional skill. And by doing that, the learners, that means you will learn a language, or your students will learn a language. So it provides opportunities for reflection on language use. So as the main objective is on the language use, so it will be focusing on the opportunities to use the language. So the task in language, or in other words, we will be looking at the theory of language. How does task-based language teaching look to the language? What is its consideration? What is its belief about the language? It is this particular thing has come several times till now in these slides. So we know that language is primarily a means of making meaning. Multiple models of language inform TBI. TBI means task-based instruction. Multiple models refers that this particular approach doesn't believe only one model. So it believes on several models. So not only particular one model it actually consists or believes in. So it thinks that theory of language could be based on more than one model. So it is referring 3 models in there. Lexical units are central in language use and language learning. So lexical units refers to the word, to the base as entity of a language. So that means if you are talking about written language, then the words will be the lexical units. If we are talking about the oral delivery, then the sounds will be referred, the unit of sounds will be referred as the lexical units. So those lexical units are central in language use and language learning. Conversation is the central focus of language and the keystone of language acquisition. As we already know that it depends on the meaning, it actually focuses on communication. So conversation is the central focus in the language acquisition. So what does it think about language learning? So task-based instruction in language learning. Task provides both the input and output processing necessary for language acquisition. I many times I influence my learners, or I instructed my learners about developing the input, because it is pretty much science. Like every output depends on the input. For example, in order to turn on a light, you need to have the input of electricity. So if you input electricity, then output will be the light from the bulb. So like this thing, in a language, if you have more input of that particular language which you are going to learn, or you are intended to learn, based on that input, you will have the output processing. And that's how your language will be acquired. Task activity and achievements are motivational. So the way you will be have the task, you will be have activity, and the way you will be doing or completing or accomplishing those tasks, those will be motivational for your language learning. Learning difficulty can be negotiated and fine-tuned for particular pedagogical purposes. Okay, so if you think that your difficulty level the difficulty level of the task or activities is beyond your level, so that time that particular task or activities can be negotiated and fine-tuned. The teacher might be using a more convenient task and activities for you. So, but that definitely will be related to pedagogical purposes, because in real life you will not you cannot give a boundary to your opponent, to your conversation mate, that give these words, use these words, or otherwise I would not understand. You cannot say to the other person in real life. But in pedagogical side, that means in a classroom setting, and it can be happen. It can be negotiated and fine-tuned. So the syllabus. So what will be the syllabus? This is another issue that you need to look closely, because based on the syllabus you need to prepare your material and design your material. So here is the conventional syllabus type. So if I would like to remind you about the syllabus. Syllabus is the organization of the contents, selection and organization of the contents. It is one small part of curriculum. So what will be the content in there? If you want to teach a language to learners, what are the things you will be including in your syllabus? Those syllabus will be, there will be language structures in there, functions in there, topics and themes in there. There will be math skills like reading skill, writing skill, listening skill, and speaking skill. And you will have contents based on the competencies and the text types and the vocabulary targets. So those will be the target in your syllabus. So according to David Noonan, the syllabus might be two types. One is real world task. So based on the real world, based on the practices, based on the design of real world, your syllabus will be designed, which will be very helpful and useful in the real world. And another one will be pedagogical task, which is based on the psycholinguistics in ESL theory and research, but do not necessarily reflect real world tasks, because mostly it will be focused in a classroom basis. So you will be acting, you will be doing task and activities in a classroom, and the base purpose will be pedagogical implementation, and some SL theories will be applied, research will be applied in order to teach you these things. So those two types can be used. Okay, here are some task types. So here are 10 task types in there. First I thought that I would not be giving all those things. Later I thought that it will be a resource for you. So if you, I will not be covering all of these things. So you can do one particular thing, is that you can have a pause in this particular session, and it will be, you can take note on these things and take a snapshot and read and understand in there. If you don't if you find anything not comprehensible, then definitely you will have the forum in there to have the question. But these are the task types. I hope that it will not be a problem. Diagrams and formations, drawing, clock faces, monthly calendar, maps, school timetables, programs and itineraries, train timetables, age and year of birth and month. So these are the task types. These task types can be implemented, can be introduced in a task-based instruction. So what will be diagrams and formations? Naming parts of a diagram with numbers and letters of the alphabet as instructed. So you will have instruction, and there will be diagram in there, and you need to maybe name the parts of these things, maybe with numbers, with letters, and with alphabet. And by doing so, by doing that particular activity, they need to do this task, and by doing this task, you will be able to learn the numbers. So that's one way to implement the task. Drawing geometrical figures, formations from sets of verbal instructions. So for example, I can instruct you to draw a smartphone. So what will I say? What is maybe I will say that make a rectangular. Okay, and I have shown you some rectangular in there, and by looking at the picture, and you will be adapting or merging. I have shown you some rectangular in there, and by looking at the picture, and you will be adapting or merging my words with the picture, and you will be able to identify that rectangulars means what, or through doing these things, through doing the activity. When I will say making a line in there, for example, let me give you something. One, for example, I say that make a arrow in the right side, and make another arrow in the lower side, and make another in the left side, and these two arrows from the first one to the last one, just merge it with another, and that will be considered as rectangle. That's how you will be able to understand what is a rectangle. So like this one will be we can consider. Okay, give me a second. Yes, you can have all these tasks, and by doing this you will be able to initiate different tasks in your classroom. So task in TBI. So here is an example of task. According to Norris, Brown, Hudson, and Yoshika, they provide an example of real world task. Yes, that is real world task. The theme is planning a vacation. So we do plan a vacation, and during planning a vacation, we decide whether you can go based on the advantage miles. That means, how will you go? What will be the options? What will be the tasks you need to do? So booking a flight, choosing a hotel, booking a room. So this all will be as a plan of a vacation. And by doing these things, by booking a flight, you need to have a conversation. By choosing a hotel, you need to bargain with your mates or with your partners of the vacation. And of course, booking a room, whenever you will be call a hotel about booking a room, you need to conversate with the front desk executive, and that's how you will have language practice in there. So those will be a task there. Another is application to university task. If you want to go abroad and apply to the university for a higher education, so you need to apply first, and then you need to correspond with the departmental chair. You need to be talking and having a conversation with the head of the department, inquiring about the financial support. That means maybe the scholarship, maybe the waivers and other things. Selecting the courses you want and are eligible to take using advice from your advisor. So that is another task. So you need to do that. Registering by phone, calculating and paying your fees. So all these tasks you need to do if you want to apply for a university. So those are the tasks you need. So you need to look at very closely about this thing, because you will be having a task later following this task. Okay, so what will be the learning and teaching activities in a class? What we will do in there? Pika, Kangune, and Foruden classify tasks according to the types of interaction. So it's all about the interaction. So jigsaw task, information gap task, problem solving task, decision making task, opinion exchange task. For example, booking a flight or booking a hotel is considered as decision making task. You can have decision making. Opinion exchange task, in a particular option you may exchange your opinion and based on your background knowledge, and by doing so you will have knowledge as on the target language. Jigsaw task, this involves learners combining different pieces of information to form a whole. For example, there are 5 persons in a group. Okay, let me draw something for you. So maybe this 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I as a teacher in here, I give you a task is that I am talking about a movie. Okay, and you might have proper idea on this particular movie, but you do not know about this movie. So there are some information on this page. I have separated in 5 sections, and I gave a different section to different person. And the task is that you have to ask another about this one, about the information, and then gathering all the information together, you will be able to tell me what is there in this particular movie or the theme or the story. And by these things, we can call it as the jigsaw task. Okay. So there are other characteristics of task, other features of task, and these are described as one way or two way, convergent and divergent. That means that whether the students are accepting it, the task they're accepting, or they're refusing, whether it is a common goal or several different goals. Collaborative or competitive, whether they are doing it together, or they are having a competition to make it possible. Concrete or abstract language, simple or complex processing, simple or complex language, reality based or not reality based. So if it is not reality based, if it is based on the classroom, that will be considered as a pedagogical activity, or if it is based on the real life task, then it will be considered as reality based, real world based task in there. What will be teachers' roles in here? So what a teacher will do in a TBI, task-based instruction class. So what will be the role of the teachers? The teacher will select the task, and he or she will give the sequence of the task. Which task will be, which task, want to introduce which task, this will be identified or decided by the teacher. And the teacher will prepare preparing learners for task, yes, not the task only, but also the teacher will prepare the learners. The teacher will give proper instruction as the learners can initiate or can do this task. And of course, he or she will raise consciousness. That means he or she will be motivating the learners about doing the task, about participating in the activities. And the learners will be, the learners can be a group participant. He or she, the student, the learners, they can make a group and they have to participate in a group. They will be monitored. They will be acting as monitor, because they will be monitoring about the performance of the other group members. And based on this, he or she will be focusing on the task, completing the task. And definitely, he or she will be the risk taker and innovator. He or she will be taking risks. Risk means here, it means that he or she will be trying to start a conversation or any particular component. He will be trying to develop any particular component, maybe the sentences. And by doing so, he or she is taking risk. He or she will be acting as an innovator of new conversation, because you cannot specify a conversation. That was one of the issues in unilingual method. And the role of the materials, that is very important, because we are focusing on the materials. So the materials which are designed or will be designed in there will be based on pedagogical materials, which will be followed by pedagogical materials. That means as for teaching, for learning in there. And of course, based on the realia, that means real life tasks. We talked about this task earlier in the previous slides. So there is a little problem in there. So I am having this particular procedure. We will have pre-task activities, and then we will have task activity. We will have post-task activities, and then listening to the recordings of native speakers' performance and compare. So these are procedures. So first you will have a preliminary activity, and the brainstorming, ranking exercises, and problem solving tasks are considered as preliminary activity, because you will be thinking about that particular topic in there, and you will be ranking those exercises, rank 1, 2, and 3, and you will have problem solving task in there as a part of pre-task activities. And of course, you need to read related with the topic, the task you are doing, maybe the conversation, and or maybe a single speech. You need to read about the topic which you are going to deliver. And of course, the task activity, you need to perform a role play. As a learner, definitely you have a role in the group or in the pair, so you can do it in the task activity. And under post-task activities, you will have looking back about these activities, how far you have done. And doing so, you will be looking at the next one, that is listening to the recordings of native speakers' performance and compare. So you will be comparing your performance with the native speakers' performance, and you will be that is one kind of trial and error. So you will be finding your errors in there, and you will be rectify yourself. So this is an example of those procedure, like is in introduction to topic and task. This is an example as a pre-task. So Teacher helps students to understand the theme and objectives of the task. For example, brainstorming ideas in the class using pictures, mime, or personal experience to introduce the topic. For example, today my topic is to have a written comprehension on Poila Boishakh. So, in order to have idea about Poila Boishakh as a pre-task, I might give you some idea about Poila Boishakh as a pre-task. I might give you some ideas which will brainstorm about this topic. I might use some pictures. I might use some personal experience. I might visit to participate in different fair. Yes, New Year fair, New Year celebrations in there. I will be doing that, and I will be introducing the topic, and that will be considered as pre-test. And students may do a pre-test as well. For example, topic-based odd word out game. So, for example, Poila Boishakh, they might be able to generate different words related to Poila Boishakh, so they can do that. Teacher may highlight useful words and phrases, but would not pre-teach new structures. Of course, maybe new words can be introduced in there. Maybe you have learned different Bangla words relating to Poila Boishakh, but you do not know the English words of there. So what you can do as a teacher, you can highlight those useful words and phrases, but do not do that as pre-teach the new structures. Do not do that. And students can be given preparation time to think about how to do the task. Of course, you need to give some time to your students. And students can hear a recording of a parallel task being done, so long as this does not give away the solution to the problem. So of course you can parallel task in there, but you need to take this consideration that you will take this mind that these two tasks doesn't come to with same outcomes or almost same structures. And if the task is based on a text, students read part of it. Okay, they will be reading as a part of pre-text. So the task cycle, that what will be the task? The task is done by students and gives students a chance to use whatever language they already have to express themselves and say whatever they want to say. This may be a response to reading a text or hearing a recording. So we say that in communicative language teaching, the use of native language is allowed. So you learners can use the native language. So, but during this task, they might use their mother tongue in there, but of course they need to involve with the target language as well. And the teachers walks around and monitors, encouraging and supportive way everyone's attempts at communication in the target language. So during doing this task, teacher will not sit on a chair. He or she will move towards students. Teacher helps students to formulate what they want to say, but will not intervene to correct errors of form. Okay, definitely he or she will not be looking at the form or the structure. He or she will be more focused on formulating or helping them to go through the task and activities. He will help them to move the task from one stage to another stage. The emphasis is on spontaneous exploratory talk and confidence building within the privacy of the small group. So the emphasis will be the spontaneous because it is more focused on the fluency rather than accuracy. So spontaneous reaction and explanatory talk and confidence building exercises will be focused in small group. Success in achieving the goals of the task helps students' motivation. So if the students or learners can able to do the task, it will be motivating him or her for the next task. So the plan will be there. Planning prepares for the next stage when students are asked to report briefly to the whole class how they did the task and what the outcomes was. So they will have plan. Then they will draft and rehearse what they want to say or write. So definitely there will be mistakes in there, but as a teacher will not correct them. They will be correcting by themselves through trial and error. So the teacher goes around and advises them to do these things, suggesting phrases. Maybe you students can ask you about any English words of the first language. For example, you learn if your learner is from Bangla language, he might ask you a Bangla word and want to know the English word of that Bangla word. So if the reports are in writing, teacher can encourage peer editing and use of dictionaries. Peer editing refers that the learners will edit. For example, if there is the A, B and C, A will check B's copy and B will check C's copy and C will check A's copy, and by editing or doing so, they will be able to identify the mistakes. Of course, they can use the dictionary as well. The emphasis is on clarity, organization, accuracy as appropriate for a public presentation. So we said that before, we will be focusing on the clarity and organization, and as we can make it as a public. By doing so, it's a part of a plan. By doing so, one stage by another stage. Individual students often take the chance to ask questions about specific language items. So yes, anybody can ask in a classroom about doing these things, doing the task, and relating with the language or language items. And that's how they will be able to develop the report. Teacher asks some prepares to report briefly to the whole class, so everyone can compare findings or begin a survey. So the teacher can read the text or read the development of the students, and he or she can read aloud of this thing and making some points on there, as other students can take notes. Teacher chairs, that means he will be the central of that particular class. By saying Sandy doesn't mean that he or she will be controlling. He or she will be giving the instructions. Comments on the content of the reports rephrase perhaps, but gives no overt public correction. So you will not, or she will not give any public correction in there. Another thing is that after having CLT, you know that as in CLT, it is morely based on focusing on doing the things rather than correcting the mistakes. So they will be focusing on doing reports or doing other activities which is essential during applying or using a language. And the post-task listening, and then the next one, the students will listen to a recording of fluent speakers. That's the last one, and they will be comparing their tasks, their doings with the native speakers, fluent native speakers. That's how they will be able to identify the problems. And last one, the language focus. They will be analyzing from the language. Teacher sets some language focus tasks based on the text students have read or in the transcripts of the recordings they have heard. So based on there, they will be doing that. So the examples is that find words and phrases related with the title of the topic of the text. Read the transcript, find words ending in S or apostrophe S and say what the S means. Find all the verbs in the simple past form. Say which refer to past tense and which do not. Underline and classify the questions in the transcript. So by doing these things, they will be looking at how to do these things, how to do the task. So in a language task, it's pedagogical. So in a language task, they will be doing these things. But in real task, they will be doing other things. Maybe they will be trying to adjust or adapt a conversation by replying the opponent in a conversation. And then till starts students off, then students will continue often in pairs. So these are the procedures. So one step by another step, the teacher will be doing this thing, the students will be following this thing, and that's how the whole procedure will be completed to give information and about the language, and they will be carrying on the task and activities. And the practice based, now the students have all these things, so the teacher conducts practice activities as needed. For example, if I have give you some information how to develop about a comprehension-based task, composition-based text. So I gave you maybe a paragraph writing on Poila Boishak. So you need to develop another writing and maybe that could be the Independence Day. So you'll be following the same pattern to write or develop that particular topic, that is the Independence Day, and that's how you have practice. So practice activities can include choral repetition of the phrases identified and classified. Okay, you can have the chorus. Memory challenge games based on partially erased examples or using lists already on Blackboard or progressive deletion. So you can do lots of practice in there. You can have more game-based practice or partially erased examples, and you'll be able to have sentence completion, matching past tense verbs as a part of a grammatical activity in there, and some other phrases and dictionary references. So by having all this information, the question is whether it is strong, and if it is strong, how strong is it? How strong is TBLT? And considering CLT, so definitely we need to identify the difference between TBLT and CLT. So I believe now you have the differences. So definitely we'll be talk about in forum. So there will be a topic created on TBLT versus CLT, and we need to provide the differences between TBLT and CLT, focusing on the strength of TBLT. How far TBLT is strong from CLT. So, do you think that it is a tough job for a teacher? So, what are the challenges a teacher might face during implementing task-based instruction approach in a language classroom? Or do you think that it will be a tough one for the students? So, you need to have both these things finding out. So, you can imagine as a teacher and you can find the problems a teacher might face and the problems a student might face in this one. Definitely, I have some chunks of those issues. Let's see. Which one will you choose to teach your learners? CLT or TBLT? Which one will you choose? That is an important one. So the challenges I want to focus considering the teacher who wants to implement TBLT in Bangladesh. Yes, in Bangladesh. If you want to do that, what we will be doing so in Bangladesh? The task, yes, the focus is there. There will be problems in managing tasks, and there will be problems for the learners and base knowledge, time. Give me a second. Yes, time, teacher training, teacher motivation, needs analysis, class size, all will be a challenge for a teacher. Developing the task is motivating the learners, following the knowledge as he or she will be works as a resource, manage the time, and of course whether the teacher has the training or not. Of course, the teacher is motivated or not, and the needs analysis. If the teacher of the institution do not have the needs analysis on the students, it will be a problematic one, and focusing on the task or based on the task, and of course the class size, the number of students in a classroom. Yes, the references. Yes, I am pretty much following this particular textbooks in there, and there are of course some other sources in there. I've uploaded some other materials for understanding this one. I believe you should have question. You should have question based on these slides. So if you have those one, please do that in the forum. Thank you. Thank you. It's a long long narration, and it is very much needed because now you are moving to the mainstream. It is very much needed because now you are moving to the mainstream. So lots of information you needed to share in order to understand in there. I know it is a tough one to be staying in front of a screen and having lots of information in there. So thank you for being here. Thank you for everything. Thank you very much.